when did you kind of start properly taking competing seriously? Like, how old were you roughly, give or take? I mean,
Uh, so
without
I was,
wishing to pry, but like roughly, you know?
yeah, I was about 9 or 10 years old when I started athletics, but I'd say it was around about the age of 13, 14 that
Okay.
I started taking it seriously. Yeah.
Okay. So during your time as a relatively serious to extremely serious athlete, like your body and yourself as a woman must have gone through an unbelievable amount of changes. Do you feel like at that time that the athletic training mindset and school of thought was like supportive to that? Like, was it changing? Was it getting better? Or like, what was your sort of experience of that kind of pathway?
My honest experience was just like absolute silence. I think there was
Okay.
no kind of, from a young girl, like you say, you're starting athletics at an age where you're coming into puberty, you're going through all those changes as a young girl, and then you're moving through your teenage years. And, I went all the way through to pregnancy and postnatally. So I went through all the life stages.
Right.
And there was no support. Like as a young girl, you're kind of told, well, you need to go onto the pill because that manages your menstrual cycle, and that's what everyone does. And you don't ask any questions because you don't fully understand, and there's no like real support to guide you with actually what happens when you have this influx of hormones, and how does your
Right.
period affect how you move and how you train, and what are the advantages and the disadvantages. There was very little conversation about that because there was such a lack of research. And as elite athletes, you put such emphasis on your nutrition and your psychology and all these key like
Yeah.
points to create those small marginal gains, but actually understanding female athletes as a whole was something that was very much not understood throughout the majority of my career, I'd say.
And did that like was that because the people that ran the sport were predominantly male, or was it that it was a black hole they didn't understand, they didn't want to understand, there were other things to be thinking about, like it was easier to talk about marginal gains and stretching and ice baths and whatever else it was, as opposed to this kind of stuff which maybe felt a bit more complicated? Or what do you think
Yeah,
it was?
I think it was. I definitely think it was that. I think there was a lack of understanding because, wow, this is a complex area. Every female athlete is completely different, and there's also that feeling of, well, this is how we've done it for so many years. Look at psychology, for example. Years and years ago, it was physical, 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 and this is how we make our best athletes. And then all of
Right.
a sudden, there was like, oh, but we all have these minds and a mindset, and actually, 90%, I would say, of being a successful athlete is, won and lost with your psychology and your mentality.
Right.
So I think there was definitely that shift. But I think from the female health perspective, I think definitely being a male dominated environment, most of the coaches within, definitely within track and field, are male. And there's just that lack of understanding, and then that worry of, having those awkward conversations with your athletes. How do you approach
especially especially when you're a teenager, like that's not going to
exactly?
be with an older grown up man, that's going to be really awkward,
Difficult.
I
Yeah.
suspect.
So most coaches would almost just avoid the conversation and, not approach it. And I'd say only the past 2, 3 years have we started to hear more elite athletes speaking openly about how they feel that their menstrual cycle and their hormones have had an impact on their training and performances in competition.